half an hour, so. And I've got the gavel, man, people. You don't know what you've done. Well, I've been thinking a little bit about this ever since Kathy asked me if I wanted to take on this role. And so I've been thinking about the mission of our club, right? Liberty Toastmasters North. And so we really have a dual mission. Most Toastmasters groups have the mission of building confidence and the ability to speak in public for their members. And so this is also part of our mission. But we have another mission because we are Liberty Toastmasters. And so part of that mission is that we want to educate our members on the Constitution and the principles of liberty that are the foundation of this country. So I wanted to focus on that second mission for a moment. And so my intention, my intention is to kind of focus a little bit on the essentials. And what are the essentials of our republic and our liberty? And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with some of these essentials because they're in here, this little book, which has the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And those are the rules of the republic, but they're not all the rules, right? Because there are rules and there are rules. These are the formal rules for the republic. The Constitution is the who, the what, and the how, the nuts and the bolts, while the Declaration of Independence is the why we have this country. But there are, in my mind, there are two kinds of rules: the written, the formal rules, and the unwritten, informal rules. And so what I want to do is I want to focus on some of the unwritten rules, which are equally important for the survival of our republic as the written rules. Now, what do I mean by the unwritten rules? And I want to quote Frederick Douglass, who said, "The life of the nation is secure only while the nation is honest, truthful, and virtuous." Frederick Douglass, for those of you who don't know who he was a slave during the time of Lincoln, and he escaped, got his freedom, and then he became a speaker who was always talking about liberty and the ending of slavery, which eventually happened during Lincoln's presidency. And when I talk about the principles and virtues, what I mean is really what and I think these are spiritual qualities that we bring to the table to make this republic work. And because liberty, the way I see it and observe it today, is that liberty is always under attack in some way. There are always some people who are ready to snuff it out if it's going to give them one little edge, one little bit of advantage. And it could be, it could be money, it could be power, any one of those things. But whatever's good for them or for their little group, and not so much for the rest of us. And so they sow division, and they play one group against another. And what they try to do is to try to convince us that there's something better than liberty out there. And for reasons that are hard to understand, there are a lot of people who fall for it. So my belief is that to counteract these forces, we need to develop these principles and these virtues in ourselves in order to keep liberty alive. And I want to give one example. And the example I want to start with is disagreement. And how to do disagreement the right way. And I think we do it right here at Liberty Toastmasters, because disagreement done right means that we don't vilify somebody because he has a different opinion. And we listen and we try to see if there's anything good in that opinion. It's something that maybe an angle that we hadn't considered before. And so we try to learn from everybody, whether they have a different political opinion, a different religion, or whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? We're thinking about the ideas, and maybe they have a good idea. So we try to learn, and I think that's disagreement done right. And disagreement done wrong is very much on display in the media and social media today. And that's where we devalue other people, or their opinions, because they're different from what we believe. And it's very simple. We can allow other people to have their opinion, and in return, we should expect them to respect ours. So my goal as president is to provide a word of the day for every meeting, each time we meet, that represents some virtue or some idea that I think is essential to keeping liberty alive. And today's word is actually two words, and that would be respectful disagreement. Because no group of people ever agrees on everything, right? But we can disagree respectfully. And that's all I have for today. And I think that's it. I don't know, are we, what is our next thing?
You can hand it back to Kathy.
Kathy.
Or I can actually, well, actually, I'll say something else since, thank you. Yeah. I'll hand it back to Kathy. All right, that concludes our installation of next year's officers. Thank you all. With that, I'll hand it back to our current president,